Welcome back to another episode. So, I'm going to get right to it today. And today's topic is something that is so near and dear to my heart, and it is the reality, the truth about what it can be like to date a fearful avoidant and to dispel some myths that I hear a lot in the attachment space community. And I think what these platforms are trying to do is show that there is hope, there are solutions. You have neuroplasticity, you can change a lot of these patterns and habits. You, as the partner of someone who is a little less in touch with what it means to be in a healthy relationship, you can sometimes hold it down, be a healthy partner, communicate, do what you can. And sometimes you can see dividends pay obviously much better than if you're both in this toxic cycle and pattern causing more and more damage to each other. That's 100% true across the board. I agree with all of those things. However, I think what happens is that in a lot of the platforms, they can be prone to selling you this belief that it is up to you and that your actions, like so much is riding on your actions, when really what you want to be is in a relationship that is reciprocal. And what that means is that it's not this zero sum or scorekeeping game where you want someone to be exactly like you in every way and pull exactly the weight that you pull in all of the ways that you pull it, because we complement each other, right? And most of the time, opposites attract, and we want that trait variety in relationships. But what I mean is that you want your role in the relationship to be a very, very close match. So if you are in a therapist relationship, you want the person sitting in the chair across from you to be in a client relationship, right? It's not a match to be in a therapist relationship. Does that mean that in your personal life you can't share advice and give each other advice? Yeah, for sure. But if the relationship is dominantly a therapist relationship, the person you want sitting across from you has got to be your client. And similarly, if you are in a romantic relationship and you are a romantic partner, the person sitting across from you is someone you want to be your romantic partner. You don't want them to be your client, and you don't want them to be your therapist either, because those things significantly destroy intimacy. And one of the reasons that they destroy intimacy is because they are very, very good at breeding resentment. So, with that being said, I'm going to start with a story. Once upon a time, about 15 years ago, there was a young woman and she met the love of her life. This is what she thought. And this was her person. She had never felt like this for anybody else. And she had never had such a complete trust for anyone as she had for this man that she met. They were both 20 years old at the time. And one time she lost her cell phone and they had plans, and the plans were going to come up soon. And she was not sure that she was going to be able to find her cell phone before then. He knew that she had lost her cell phone, and she remembered just thinking, like, he's going to find me. I don't have to worry. I don't have to, try to go above and beyond to really like do extra. He is going to find me. I know he's going to show up. I know he's going to do the things that he said he's going to do, and he is going to be there for me. And she just really had this like anchored, safe sense of like, for the first time in her life, that this person is someone that I can rely on. And so as they got to know each other, they built this friendship and it was really sweet. They hung out tons of hours during a summer and they had their first kiss on his birthday. And it was just like this very wonderful sort of like sweet summer romance of like young love. And as things progressed, got more and more deep into their feelings and that connection for each other, developing out of that friendship, progressing out of that friendship into more of a romantic dynamic. And he was going to go away to school. She was staying in the town that he grew up in, where they met, where she lived. And there were reasons that he gave her that felt like they made sense for the relationship to not continue. They weren't boyfriend and girlfriend yet, so he took a step back and he said, "Hey, I think that I really just want to focus on school, and here's how I feel about things." And then he was kind of like, "But I want to definitely still keep being friends, and I'll see you when I come home and visit." They had, build a lot of that intimacy, kissing and um nothing much more than like some heavy petting. I will keep it PG, but there wasn't even anything more than that. And they, in her mind, were really, really connected. So she did something that she had never ever done before, was she decided to really be vulnerable and tell him how she truly felt. Because before this, she wasn't very good at expressing her feelings in a verbal way. It was more like, yes, I will spend time with you. Like, I will ask you lots of questions about yourself. So she was really good at like showing up and saying yes to opportunities to be around him, but not as good at saying, you make me feel really good. I really like you for these reasons. Like, I am affected by your behavior. So she took a chance and actually wrote him a letter saying how she felt and that she saw a place and a possibility for her to be in his life, even though it would be long distance for a little while. And even though it would be a little bit challenging, that she wanted to give that effort and make that effort for him. She liked him that much. And to her surprise, honestly, he saw her in person before he left for school. This was in about a week and a half's time. Again, it was a long time ago. I'm forgetting all of the specific details. But in about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks' time from sending the letter, he was about to leave for school. So he saw her once or twice before he left for school again. And on the first time he saw her, after he received that letter, he said, "I feel the same way and I want to be with you. Will you be my girlfriend?" So it was like, I mean, everything that she hoped that it was going to be. She was so excited. And it was like, it really felt like a fairy tale. I mean, he was like her perfect guy. He looked the way she wanted her man to look. He spoke and was smart in the way that she wanted her man to be. And everything he was pursuing, he was a gentleman. He was pursuing things that she thought were respectable. And he left for school and he made time to call her. I'm forgetting what the frequency was, but it was a few nights a week. And the conversations weren't long because the school that he was in was really strict about the free time that the students got. So he didn't have a lot of time at night. And he made time to call her and things like that. And just a few weeks after that, she broke up with him. She, I can't remember if she waited for a call. I think so. I think she waited for a phone call. I don't think she did it in a text or anything. And she said, like, "Hey, I just don't think that this is going to work." And she broke up with him. And you might think to yourself, what a crazy, crazy person, right? How could she do something like that? She got what she wanted, then discarded him. And was it even real? What did she do that for? Why did she hurt him in that way? Why was she so confusing? And it's probably no surprise to you at this point in the story that that person was me. Oh my God. Let me just take a minute to collect myself because I mean, I obviously, like, as time has gone on, I lost some of the finer details, like what the timeline was. Did I send a text message or did I wait for a phone call? I do think it was a phone call though. But I remember how I felt, and I remember what that was like to do that. And I remember going, "What is wrong with you? Why did you break up with this man that you love?" And I was really close to his family too, his mom and his sister. And I remember his sister asking me, like, "Why did you do that?" And she wasn't judging me or shaming me or anything. She was always so supportive of me as a person. She might not always agree with the choices that I made, but she always supported me as a person. And I remember her just being so confused, like, and I remember saying to her, like, it's just the way it had to be. And so let me tell you what it was like and why I made that decision. I was so deeply fearful avoidant, truly until I was 32 years old, because I didn't even know what fearful avoidant was before then. And so I didn't have any ways to move through it. And I remember talking to people, my friends, his sister, that guy's sister, his mom, like mentors that I had, so many people about the way I felt in relationships and asking anyone if they could relate and people saying no. And I know that fearful avoidance, I think statistically, are supposed to be like the smallest group attachment style. Like there's the fewest of us. And that's kind of skewed for me because the thing about attachment styles is they attract the ones that they are like prone to attracting. So for example, anxious people tend to attract a lot of dismissive avoidance and vice versa. So they're kind of always in each other's orbits. And secure people tend to attract secure people. And fearful avoidance can kind of move around the spectrum, but we love other fearful avoidance. So I have been exposed to a lot of fearful avoidant personalities in my life. So I have had lots of experiences with them, not only just being one myself. And so even now I step back and I think like it's interesting that people said that they couldn't relate because I just now looking back could see so many people who definitely had those fearful avoidant tendencies that I can see now that they obviously didn't even see in themselves then. However, maybe those happened to not be the people I was asking if they could relate. And so where I want to go next is that what was I feeling and thinking and why did I do that? Everything I said to you was completely true. That's how I felt about this guy. I thought he was like the absolute man of my dreams. And he was the first time I met a person and I was like, I really feel like I want to spend and could spend like the rest of my life with this person. It didn't feel like there was anything that I was like, oh, I'm kind of hesitant about this. He was really well liked in the community that we were a part of. He was so handsome. Oh my God, he was strapping. He was beautiful. And we could laugh together. And I just had so much respect for him. He was someone I felt like could teach me things. And I'd never really been in a situation where I really felt, I mean, we're all young, we're all doing stupid things. And I was 20 years old at that time. So I had, like, before that, been dating teenage boys, right? Like, because I was just 19, less than a year before I met him. So I was very comfortable with him when we were friends. And the more and more we kind of like slipped into that intimacy and started kissing and holding hands and talking about like romantic things, it felt so good. It felt really, really good. And the first thing, so what it feels like to be a fearful avoidant is that there's this like internal abacus in your mind, and you're just moving beads like back and forth, usually back. And because the good things, unfortunately, seem to lose the weight that they could potentially have when the bad things start happening. So I had a lot of good things, right? I moved a bunch of beads into the good category before I really started getting triggered. And the turning point for me was when he shared a lot of that intimacy with me, shared a lot of like, I really like you, I'm really into you, I am like holding these pieces of your heart in my hand that you're giving to me, you're trusting me with. And when he was kind of like, I think I'm just going to go to school, and like in my mind what I heard was, you're not important enough to maintain a connection with when I go to school 3 hours from where we are. And the next thing that I heard was, there's no place for you in my life. And one of the things that he told me in particular, and this is a whole other topic, but he told me that when I go to school, I want to focus on God. And the things that we were doing, like getting more physically affectionate with each other, really scared him. And I know that now. I know that's what he was feeling then, but at the time, I felt like, you're opening me up and you're exposing me to that physical intimacy, and then you're completely taking it away. And when he said that he just wanted to pursue God and just focus on God, it made me feel like I was ungodly. Like, to choose a life with God meant to leave me behind. And as a 20-year-old, that was absolutely devastating. It was absolutely devastating. And because I liked him so much, I wanted to be with him. And I wanted to show him. That was one of the things that I wrote in the letter, was like, there is a place for me in your life and God. But that did its damage. The damage was done, and the bead on the abacus had been moved, and it would never move back. And when we got into our relationship, and these are the more real components of it, and this is what a fearful avoidant is doing, we are storing things up on that abacus. And when he had very little time for me at night, it's not always the person in the relationship's fault, right? What I was going through at the time was, I was 20 years old. I was not legally allowed to work in the United States at that point in my life. So I sat in a living room on a futon that I had made some under the table money and had to work for months to save up for, and had just moved off from sleeping on the floor in the living room before I bought that futon. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. I think it was just me and my dad at that point. My mom was in and out of rehab. I couldn't go to school because I didn't have any money to do that, and I didn't get financial aid. And so all of these things are happening for me in my life that are reinforcing my belief within myself that I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm defective. Like, there are all of these things that I believe about myself. And when he did that, they completely, when the rain is about to come and the pressure increases and you can smell it. That's why people say that they can smell the rain. And what they're really smelling is like the things that are happening in the atmosphere because the pressure has changed. That's what it did. Having a relationship was like the rain coming. And it increased all of my awareness, all of this pressure that was already me putting on myself in my life, all of this negative self talk that I had going on. and made me feel like he could see, or he would very soon be able to see, what a piece of garbage I was. And he was going to school, he was making something of himself, and I thought it's only a matter of time before he sees that I'm just a poor girl who has nothing to offer. The last thing, and again, there were many little things, right, that I was moving the abacus for. And the last thing that I can really categorize is that he had met a girl at school. And whenever we called on the phone, he would say things to me like, "Oh, yeah, we did this today. We have these classes together. We had this joke that we shared at the cafeteria. But it's good. And there's no like issues or anything to worry about because she's engaged and I'm with you." I feel like I don't even need to explain that one. It was not very good to say that to me, especially with all of the things that I was already carrying. And she was beautiful, this girl too. She was very, very beautiful. And that's another component that I was dealing with at the time was I did not feel good about my physical appearance at 20 years old. Interestingly enough, I had made it through my teenage years feeling quite good about myself. And I don't know if it's because I then all of a sudden, I think this is it. I think if I had to guess what really shifted for me was I then moved to an area where nobody looked like me. So in Trinidad, you know, just being mixed in general, no matter where you go, it tends to be the minority. So I'm used to being the minority and not having everyone look like me. But in Trinidad, there are black people, there are Indian people. Those are the dominant groups. So I'm at least sharing skin color with a lot of these people. I'm sharing cultural sameness with because I'm Trinidadian and they are Trinidadian. So I'm sharing that. When I moved to New York City, there's so much diversity there. And there are a lot of Hispanics in the Bronx where I grew up. So I'm fitting in physically there. There are lots of people with curly hair. There are lots of people with my skin tone. And a lot of Hispanics that live in the Bronx are Caribbean. It's not like Mexicans and Spaniards or people from Argentina or whatever. It's like Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, people like that who are Caribbean. And so a lot of the cultural attributes that they have are very similar to the folks in Trinidad. So there are a lot of things that I could relate to, despite there being a language, like a predominant language difference of the cultures. And the food is also even very similar. So felt at least like I could fit in those ways when I was in New York City. And then when I moved to central New York, it was the very first time in my life where I really, really, really felt like, even more than I had before, like I totally did not belong. And I felt I was like the only person in most of the groups that I was in who had curly hair, who had dark skin, who didn't grow up in that area. I lived in a small enough town at that time where most of the people who lived in that area had grown up in that area. Um, and so I just felt like I was an outsider in so many different ways. And I didn't know how to do my hair. I didn't know how to dress, wear clothes that were flattering to me. And so all of these things really contributed to that internal landscape. And to have someone that I was feeling already so vulnerable around, and then he was out of my sight too. Like, I couldn't like hang out with him whenever I wanted to. I couldn't be around him and that person that he had made friends with, the young woman that he had made friends with. I was just like virtual, the girlfriend from Canada. Like, I might as well have been imaginary, is what I felt at the time. And so that is the inside scoop. That is why a fearful avoidant will write you a letter, tell you they love you, and they want to be with you, and they want to make things work, and they will be super, super sweet to you. And in the background, that is what's happening. The abacus is moving, and they are storing up reasons, not on purpose, but to be fearful avoidant means that you have lived a life, for the most part. This is the average story. You've been in abusive situations. You have been in situations where there's a lot of chaos. You have had a lot of people, or some people, repeatedly telling you that you are nothing, that you are worthless. There are all of these things that have happened up until this point where they meet you. And you can do these things that you think are no big deal. And to a healthy nervous system, they can be solvable problems. We can talk them through. I could say, like, hey, it really hurt me when I felt like we were building all this intimacy, and then you felt like there was no room for me in your life. And it made me feel like you were saying that to pursue God means to leave me behind. Is that what you meant? Like, that's something that's possible, and it should be. But a fearful avoidant, to be fearful avoidant means we cannot do that. We can't do it. So that backstory, that story, is to set the stage. And that was actually a relationship at the time that I was in for even a little while, that I was able to be in for a little while, that I really actually wanted to be with the person. Some other things about what it's like to be fearful avoidant that they don't tell you, or that I feel like the other platforms make it really, really, they leave these out. Maybe there are exceptions to the rule, but these stories definitely get left out. So if you're experiencing this with a fearful avoidant person in your life, or if you think you're fearful avoidant, you're experiencing this as well, know that you're not alone. And this is well within the realm of what it means to be fearful avoidant. Is up until I had even met that guy, I did have a boyfriend in high school that I liked for quite a while, for the most part. But that relationship was like serious chaos. So what I'll talk about, but it was an anomaly. It was an anomaly. And I don't know if it's because he and I were friends for such a while before I dated him, that even though it was chaos, I was able to be in that relationship for a little bit longer. And we were constantly breaking up anyway. We were constantly like getting into fights, and it was not good. It was like, it was probably one of the worst relationships, if not the worst relationship that I was ever in, that I was responsible for the damage being done in that relationship as well. And we could talk about that some other time. But what I want to talk about is all of the relationships before I was 20 years old, excluding that high school relationship, and what they were like. And what it was like for me is that I had huge crushes throughout my childhood and young adulthood. From middle school, so maybe I was like 11 when I was in middle school. So I'll start there and kind of like talk through. So, I mean, it was like the same thing over and over again. So I can tell you one story and it will be the same way for every other guy that I had a crush on all through high school until I met my high school boyfriend when we started dating when I was, I think, 16 years old. And so it was that I would really, really have a huge crush on someone. super, super huge crush. I would like think about them all the time, and I would like kind of go out of my way. There was this one boy in particular. He was so cute. I'll never forget him. He was so adorable. And I think I was older too. I was an older woman. And he was 11 or 12 at the time, and maybe he was also 11 or 12 because I was a little bit of a younger student because my birthday was in December and I didn't go to 3rd grade, I think. Um, so I was younger, but he was in 6th grade when I was in 7th grade. And I would go up to the 6th graders were on a different floor in the building than I was. And so I'd go up to the floor that he was on and I would just like try to steal glances at him. And but I never said anything, and that was my MO. If I liked you, you could not waterboard that information out of me. You couldn't get it out of me. Like, I would never say, I don't even know. I think maybe I would say things here and there to my friends. But if anybody like accused me of liking that person, that was like in a group situation or I felt like it wasn't like in a safe way, I would never say it. I would never admit it. And I never pursued any of those guys. I never would go say, like, hey, I have a crush on you. There were a couple of guys because I was on the basketball team and I ran track. And so I was constantly around young boys, who were in my age group at the time. I want to make sure that I don't sound like a total creep as a 34-year-old person saying this about like middle school boys and high school boys, but all age appropriate situations at the time. And I remember really liking these boys and hanging out with them. I mean, I was like a bro girl. Like I had tons of male friends and they saw me as like one of the bros, and sometimes they liked me back, sometimes they didn't, depending on not always the guy that I liked was who liked me back. Sometimes it was other boys. I was some people's cup of tea back then, even though I wasn't wearing clothes that fit or like didn't know how to do my hair. But I was like easy to get along with. And so I did have lots of friends, and some of the boys that I hung out with at different times, I usually was like one track, one mind, had a crush on one guy at a time. And I would hang out with that guy sometimes and never say anything. I would never say anything. And always, always, this is the second really important piece of it. Every single time I had a crush on a guy, no matter how big, and it could be big, I could have these huge crushes and think about them for months at this point. If they made the mistake of liking me back, immediately I felt so repulsed. I was like, oh my God, like I mean, I felt like this is like the feeling. I felt it in my body. Like, not only just like, oh, I'm kind of over it. It was like this visceral feeling of like, get away from me. And just like when I was 20 years old and I broke up with the guy that I really liked, when I was growing up, I would have the same thought. I would go like, what is wrong with me? Like, I just liked him so much earlier in second period, and then in third period he told me he liked me, and now I am like, hello police, like, get this boy away from me. Like, and I didn't understand what was happening. And what I after thinking for many, many years about this, here's what was happening that I can tell you with pretty strong confidence is, number one, I had no idea what the difference was between actually liking someone for real things, and that's not completely outlandish as a little kid, right? Like, you don't know. You like someone because you have the same favorite cereal and you're like, this is my person. So obviously some of that is natural, but it continued. It continued. And the important part is not just that the relationships that I got in with these people didn't last as I got to know them over time. It was that I was like flipping. I was completely 180 degrees from my feelings as soon as, and what the trigger was too, it was the moment I found out that they like me back. And so the next thing that was happening is that I was feeling that pressure, right? I was feeling those core wounds come up. I mean, I had them for look how many years ago that was, from middle school, where it was like I'm feeling trapped, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling defective. Like, same thing. Like, if they get too close to me, like, I don't think I'm going to be comfortable with that because I don't want anyone to know. Although I think the defective one got louder as I got older. But certainly the trapped was a big one, even as a little kid. And the last one, and I think this is perhaps the most responsible for what I was feeling in that flip, was limerence. Oh my God. Limerence. If you never do anything else in your life to heal, and you are someone who experiences limerence, I would say if you did one thing and nothing else, is to eradicate limerence from your life. Oh my God, what a toxin, what a neurotoxin limerence is. It is so destructive. And luckily, I have lived a life where limerence has not done too much to permanently damage my life. But limerence can be extremely dangerous. And what I was experiencing through these relationships, or through these situations that most of the time never turned into relationships, is it's this complete fabrication of a person and the life that you're going to have with them that is not at all based in reality. It is to meet the needs that you are starving for in your life, projected onto someone else. And very quickly after someone started opening up to me and I started getting to know them, it would shatter that limerence because the fantasy was over. I was actually getting to know that person. They were asking me for things, right? Do you want to be my girlfriend? Do you want to hang out? Whatever the case was, there was this breach into my imagination for this real person to be in my orbit. And it was a complete sobering up of what was happening in that moment. But because the dissonance was not like I was getting to know them over time, the dissonance was the gap between the peak limerence that I was at and what that person was actually like in real life. So, in healthy nervous systems, in healthy relationships, crushes and things like that, you're going to do this a little bit. You're going to assume, oh, maybe this person's like this, maybe this person's like that. And then maybe you go up a little bit and then you find out, oh, they're not actually like that. And so maybe you come down a little bit. So you're like, okay, I'm pulling back. But it's not this complete cognitive dissonance. When you're in limerence, you climb this mountain of fantasy, depending on how deep you get into your own limerence and how intricately you weave these threads of a life that you're going to have with this person, of the things that you're going to do together, of what personality traits that they have, of how they're going to be able to meet your needs as a person. And the more threads you weave, the further up that mountain you climb. And so when you find out back down here in reality that they are not going to do any of that most of the time, and in a lot of these situations, is because we were kids, right? They can't rescue me from my abusive household. They can't do any of that. And so the higher you climb, the harder you fall. And that is what I believe to be the biggest reason for that flip in my mind, and the disorientation of being in reality with a person who actually wanted me in their life in reality as well. So that is part one of what it's like to actually be fearful avoidant. and some myths that I hear people talk about what it's like to be fearful avoidant, which is that if you are a healthy partner, you can sort of like be solid and stable for your fearful avoidant. But if you're a solid, stable partner, number one, you're not even going to find the person who is like I was attractive. You're going to get to know them, and your cognitive dissonance is going to be a little bit, closer to baseline, but you're out of there because you can sense the dysregulation in a person like I was. And number two, it's healthy to ask a fearful avoidant for your needs to be met at whatever age you are if you guys are going to enter into a relationship together. And a fearful avoidant, if you don't leave first, we're going to leave. I left. Emotionally, I left all of those situations where somebody demanded anything of me that was totally reasonable, age appropriate, whatever, because what I was doing in the background was making my internal environment inhospitable for that person in reality because it could only fit a fantasy version of them. So that's it for today. Comment below if you can relate to any of that, if you've been the person who has experienced that for yourself, or if you've been in a situation where you think, okay, the person that I'm with, the person I'm trying to pursue, it seems like they're kind of going through a lot of what I was describing because of how abruptly they left, what signals they were sending you, and then they pulled back. But that's it. That's what it was like for me as a fearful avoidant. I'm definitely going to make more parts like this in this. This can be like a series in and of itself because I have so much to say on this topic, but I'm going to leave it there for today because yeah, there's a lot more to unpack and I want to do it in more of a like slow and methodical way. So, thanks for listening.